All right, peace and love, everybody. Peace and love. I kissing the peace side. I guess I should be saying love and peace. But anyway, I hope everybody's doing well out there today. I hope that you all are experiencing yourselves as being blessed because you are. My late grandfather, John A. Hall, used to say, if you don't know you're blessed, you might as well be cursed. The reality is that we really are all blessed. And not everybody is experiencing necessarily the same blessing. Some people have some trials and challenges that are being faced and dealt with. Some people have some advantages that maybe other people don't. But the reality is that if you're breathing, you're blessed. If you're on the planet, you're blessed. And there's some blessings unfolding for you. So I pray that we might all kind of be attuned to the reality that there are, in spite of what things might not be going as well as we'd like them to be, there's certainly somebody else who's in worse shoes than we are. So anyway, I said all that to say, I hope that you all are enjoying being blessed, and in whatever ways those blessings are unfolding for you. And I know that there are blessings that are unfolding for you. Like I said, if you're breathing, then you're blessed. You know, it's up to us to be able to identify where those blessings are and to celebrate those blessings. But anyway, we're dealing with the topic today of what to do while you're waiting. This is something that was just kind of on my heart to come on and share about. And it really kind of was sparked by a dream that I had a few weeks ago. There was something, that had been on my heart. And I was having this conversation with this person, and then later I looked up. Hey, Joy, good to see you. God bless you, my sister. Yes, you are breathing. Indeed, if you're typing, you're breathing. And in this dream, my eyes were drawn up toward the sky. And as I looked up, I saw an eagle, which was fascinating to me. I actually saw a bald eagle in person on Super Bowl Sunday here in Tampa, Florida, on my way to my sister's house. I had never seen that in person. I saw it close enough to be able to see its face. But this dream was since then. This was just a few weeks ago. And as I looked up, I noticed that it was not just one, and these were bald eagles. It was not just one eagle, but there were like a handful or so of them. I saw several of them, and I was actually fascinated by seeing all of these eagles flying in the sky above my head. And so it was later on that night, I asked, well, what were those eagles about? What was the purpose of those eagles in that dream that I had? And you know what came up? They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. Now, the other part is there too. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint, which comes from the Old Testament, the Bible, the prophet Isaiah in the 40th chapter in the 31st verse. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up on wings as eagles. And some of us are kind of in a season where we're waiting. We might be in a phase in our lives where we're waiting on something. And let me kind of put this in another context. And in that context that I wanted to share I'm originally from Detroit. I'm living in Florida now, but I'm originally from Detroit, as I know at least one of you who's here today is. And and many years ago, there was a pastor in Detroit um, who many people in seminary end up reading the writings of this person. His name was Reinhold Niebuhr. And he wrote a prayer. Not everybody is familiar with Reinhold Niebuhr, but most people are familiar with a prayer that says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Okay, many of us are familiar with that as the Serenity Prayer. And every day I actually do some version of the Serenity Prayer. A lot of times I make it a little bit more personal, and I do ask God to grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change and to accept the things that I cannot control. Hey, Rev, good to see you. Much love to you and all of TLC. And so, you know, that's a reality that we humans deal with. We are, whether we like to admit it or not, we're control freaks. We like to be able to have things work out the way that we want them to work out, when we want them to work out that way, right? And so we sometimes get a little bit anxious when we can't control other people's behavior, or when we can't control specific outcomes of certain situations, or when we can't control the timing of when things happen or how things unfold. And that can create some anxiety, some frustration, some irritation. It can cause us to act up, right? In ways that we really need not be, try to behave. It could cause us to try to be controlling towards others. And usually when a person is being controlling, it's because they're experiencing maybe some degree of powerlessness, or wanting or experiencing some lack of control and wanting to take control in some way. But the reality is, there's some things that we can't change. There's some things that we can't control. There's some things that are not for us to control or to change. And that's not our business to be tending to. But there are some things that are for us to do. There are some things that is our work. There are some things that we're supposed to be focusing on and that we need to focus on. And so, yes, I every day I ask God in some form to give me the serenity to accept the things that I can't change, the things that I can't control, the things which are not mine to do, but also for the courage, the strength, and the discipline to do the work that is mine to do, and to make those changes that do need to be made in me, recognizing that I can't do that without God. And then the strength to be able to, then the wisdom to be able to determine what it is that is mine to do and to tend to, and what it is that isn't, right? Because we can get tripped up a lot of times focusing on trying to do the stuff that it really isn't ours to be trying to tend to, or to get stressed out about the things that we really don't have any control over. But we really have to protect our vibe. We've got to protect where we are. Okay, the places that we allow ourselves to go internally. Okay, we've got to protect our own, as an expression of self-love. We've got to protect our own sense of well-being, and that isn't always trying to control external things. That sometimes is our default setting of where we try to go when things aren't going necessarily the way we'd like them to go, or we'd like to try to protect ourselves from feeling a certain way. But the reality is that there are certain things that are beyond our control. There are some things that are beyond our ability to impact in a way that is ultimately going to be useful, beneficial, or meaningful in the long run, in the bigger picture, in the bigger scheme of things. And so there may be some situations where you feel like something is perhaps part of your destiny, if you will. You may feel like there's something that is part of your path that you may even feel like there's something that you've kind of received a message from God on that that is going to unfold for you, right? And that could be an opportunity. It could be a job opportunity. It could be a business opportunity. It could be a relationship situation. It could be, it could be any number of different things. Okay, it could be a home that you're looking for, a financial opportunity, whatever the case might be. There may be something that you feel that God has placed on your heart, or there may be something that you feel like has been promised you on some level. Okay, and you may be in a phase where you are waiting, right? Where you're at a point where there's some things that you can't change, no matter how much you might want to, or there's some things that you can't really impact, or that you can't speed along, that you can't make them happen any quicker than however long it's going to take for that thing to unfold. Okay, we certainly can't and ought not really try to impact other people's sense of free will, and we can kind of, through guilt and shame and all kind of other foolishness, try to get people to bend to our will, but that really isn't going to bring us to the place of our blessing. So let's resist the temptation to try to do that. But there are situations where we are where we don't have control over the timing of things, over the path that has to unfold for us to get to our destination, right? And sometimes we experience that happening in a way that we really wouldn't prefer for it to necessarily happen, because it might bring up some stuff for us that we have to deal with internally. And really all it is presenting opportunities for growth. They're growth opportunities that are being presented to us for us to grow up a little bit, for us to become more mature, for us to be able to really hone in on the strength that's actually been placed within us, and be able to develop that, to exercise some spiritual muscles, and to be able to exert some discipline. Okay, and so what is it that we do? And that's kind of what the topic for today is what do we do while we're in this waiting phase? Okay, while we're in this waiting phase, when we feel like there's something that is our destiny, but we can't do anything to speed that along per se, or there's something that we feel is a part of our path, but there is some space of time and or distance between where we are and where that thing is, right? And so what do we do in this process while we're waiting? Okay, again, the scripture says, and I'll pull it up again in Isaiah 40:31, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. So let's focus on that part about having your strength renewed in the context of what do you do while waiting, because there is a difference between passive waiting and active waiting. Okay, a person who is in the process of looking for a job, for instance. Okay, and I teach classes that deal with helping people to, in a way that's going to be most empowering in today's day and age, to find the company. The way that I word it is, find the company that you're going to hire as your next employer. I think that's kind of an empowering way of looking at it. But there are certain things that are outside of one's control in that process. But that isn't a time for passive waiting, and I'll touch on this real quickly. There are passive things. There are four things that a person can essentially do that are in the process of looking for a new job, if you will. That's the language that people usually use. A person can go to apply to jobs online. A person can work with a recruiter. Both of those are passive approaches. They're waiting for something to be put out there. and you're responding or reacting to what's already been put out there. But that's a more passive approach. You still have to do something, but it's a more passive approach. More proactive approaches are engaging in a process of networking, since 75% of the jobs that are out there are never going to be posted online nor be with a recruiter, because the person who's looking to fill a position would rather have somebody that they feel some trust is going to be able to do the job well. And ways that you can engender that are either through the process of networking, where there's a chain of trust that's established, or actually identifying companies that you specifically want to work at, whether you know that they're hiring or not, but because you feel something in you where there is a resonance between what that company is about and what you want to be about. And so then you go and there's a whole process teach on that. And I'm not going to go into a class on job search right now. I'm just using this as an illustration. Determining companies where you want to work, independent of if they say they're hiring or not, or independent of whether a recruiter or a company has posted that they have an opening, and figuring out who your boss would be in the job you would want to do at that company, and then reaching out directly to them. Okay, that's a very proactive approach. It's not the approach that most people take, but it is an approach that actually gets people a job quicker, a better job quicker, that they end up being more happy with. And so that's an example of what to do while waiting. That's an example of actively waiting. There's some things that you can be doing in the process, some things that are in your control, some things that are your work to do. Okay, there's some things that you can be doing in the process of your own development, your own personal development. Yes, you are waiting on God to do what God's going to do, because there's some things that only God can do. There's some things you do everything that you can do, everything that is yours to do, and let God do what's God's to do. And that is going to actually help you to develop a whole new level of strength. Okay? One thing about an eagle: they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. One thing about eagles is that an eagle soars higher than any other bird. Okay? There's some things that chickens deal with, the eagles just don't deal with, because they're flying high above all of that foolishness, right? Another thing about the eagle is it has a totally different perspective, because it's looking from a much higher perspective, and it sees all of those smaller issues, all of those little issues it's easy to get caught up in when you're right there in the thick of it. Is able to see it from a more detached perspective, able to see a larger view, a more panoramic view. Okay, able to see that from a higher perspective, from a broader perspective, and able to see a bigger picture in it all. That's where that waiting on the Lord comes in terms of allowing, and part of what I would really encourage anybody to do who's in that process of waiting on whatever it is that you're waiting for, to make sure that you're praying, that make sure that you're investing time with God. Some people would say spending time with God, but you spend money and you lose it. You invest something and you are doing so because there's an expectation for a return on your investment. And in this context, I'm saying invest time with God. Invest time with just you and God, where you're talking with God, yes, but also where you're listening for the voice of God speaking back to you. And that can be very, very, very empowering in the process of doing that. And let your prayer be a sincere prayer based on what's ultimately going to serve the highest and the best good. Because in our perspective, we usually are looking at things, just part of human nature, is that we usually are looking at things from a more selfish perspective. Okay, we're looking at how we think something is specifically going to impact us. The reality is that we're only seeing through a glass dimly. as 1 Corinthians 13 talks about. We're seeing something, but we're seeing it from a distorted perspective. We're seeing things we're seeing through really, I'm going to get these words out somehow. We're seeing things filtered through the lenses of our own experiences, filtered through the lenses of our own fears, filtered through the lenses of our own limiting beliefs. Okay. So we've got filters through which we're seeing things, but part of that time, investing that time with God, is for us to be able to have some of those filters removed, right? So that we can actually see things as they actually are. We're in an age right now where a whole lot of stuff is being posted on social media. You're able to hear these words coming out of my mouth right now because of social media. And that's just the time that we're in right now. And there are a lot of on Instagram and Snapchat and all of these things where there are all of these filters all over the place, right? And in these filters, a person is able to present themselves looking much different than they actually look. They're able to present themselves as looking much, much different than they actually look, not able to be seen in the reality of what is so. Okay. And so we kind of are in a mindset of seeing things or presenting things in a filtered way. But in our prayer time, let's ask God to show us things as they really are. Okay. There may be somebody who you may want to be in a relationship with, or you may actually be in a relationship with. Ask God to show you that person as that person really is, not just as what they're wanting you to see, but as they really are. There may be a job that you're looking into or some business opportunity that you're looking into. Ask God to show you that thing as it actually is, to remove the filters and show it to you as it actually is. And if you want to be brave, ask God to show you to others as you actually are, right? And that requires, some self-honesty. You being willing to be seen as you are with all your strengths and all of your flaws, okay? And I won't even say flaws, all of your nuances, all of your idiosyncrasies, whatever those might be, okay, that it would be actually appropriate for somebody to see to make a healthy and informed decision, all right? And so, yeah, that takes a degree of courage, all right? But you spending or investing that time with God will help you to have that courage. It will help you to feel strong enough to be able to do that. It'll help you to feel strong enough to be able to do that. And so while we're in this waiting room or playing this waiting game, dealing with the things that we can't actually control, we can focus on the things that are actually our work to do. Okay. What areas, if there's if you're looking for a job or something, what can you do to improve your skills? What can you do to improve your knowledge? If you're looking for a marriage or a relationship, what can you do to be the best person that you can be? How can you develop and hone in on the relationship with yourself? The reality is, once you really get that down, you might not be pressed about having a relationship with another person, and that will be the place from which it can unfold. Okay? And so in every area of our lives, there are things that we can do and that it's appropriate for us to do. And there are things that only God can do. And so the key, while we're in this process of waiting, the key is to get clear on that which is ours to do and to do it, to ask God for the strength and the discipline, the determination to actually carry out that which is for us to do. Okay, to faithfully carry out that which is for us to tend to, that work which is for us to do. And I'm going to fill you in on a little secret. It's always an inside job. Okay, so often we're feeling, inclined to try to change somebody else, or we're feeling inclined to try to change someone's mind, or we're feeling inclined to try to manipulate situations in a way that's going to feel a little bit less challenging maybe for us. But the reality is that all of the work that we're being called to do is an inside job, including those things where we're being called or challenged to do something outwardly, externally, and there are times where there is work for us to do. Without a doubt, that's the case. But at the same time, even the work that is for us to do, maybe that's to build up some muscles within us, some internal, some spiritual muscle, some mental or emotional muscles within us that allows us to be able to get stronger. And when we're able to do that, we're able to, as the scripture says, mount up on wings as eagles. In other words, we're able to fly above the immediacy of the circumstances and the temptation to get caught up in feeling anxious while we're waiting. If you can't make the process go any quicker, being anxious about it isn't going to help. It's not. If there's nothing that you can do to speed up a situation, worrying about it certainly isn't going to speed it up. It's just going to make you feel stressed out in the process of waiting. And if anything, it's going to delay it because you're not in alignment vibrationally. You're not in resonance with the thing that's being desired. And so while in this process of waiting, our job really is to get into a position of being aligned with whatever that destiny for us actually is. Okay. And again, that brings us back to really investing that time with God to get some clarity on what that is, on how is it that I can be aligned with that which I'm seeking? How is it that I can be aligned with that which I believe I've been promised? How is it that I can be aligned with that which is my destiny? And destiny deals with a destination. Okay. Have you ever taken a trip that you never end up getting where you were planning on going? Maybe you left out in the morning and you had a plan on doing something during the day or getting it to some point during the day and didn't make it there. Maybe you started college but didn't finish. Maybe you started a poem or a book or a painting or something, but you never actually reached the destination. So destiny is lined up with destination. The plan could be to arrive at that place, to get to that place that you're looking to reach. But it's not a guarantee. A destiny is not a guarantee. There's some things that we have to do. There's some places where we have to line up, where we have to be in alignment to reach that destiny, okay? To experience the fulfillment of that, to get to that destination point. And the reality is that ultimately, no matter where we're going, we never ultimately finally get where it is that we're ultimately going, not as long as we're sucking wind and living in this earth suit called a human body, right? But what we can do is we can, with faith in God and diligence and dedication and doing what it is that we can do and that which is ours to do, we can get to the places that we're going along the way. The reality is that all of us have some things in our heart that we like to experience, some things in our heart that we'd like to achieve. The reality is that God is speaking to us, and hopefully we're hearing the things that God is saying. A lot of the desires, the deep desires that we have, are things that God placed in us in the first place. And certainly things that God placed in us to desire, if you're putting God first and God has given you the desires of your heart, certainly God wants you to experience the fulfillment of your heart's desires. And so the key is actually knowing that, being aligned with that, letting God do what's God's to do, and you doing what's yours to do. Right? Right? And so, how do we deal with the questions or the concerns about what is it that's for me to do and what is it that's for God to do? Okay. All right. Well, here's something. And there's some things that God can do through you. There's some things that are being called for the God in you to do rather than the ego in you to do. If I could just make it plain, if you're experiencing a sense of impatience and you're acting out based on what you're feeling impatient about, that's not God working. That's you trying to do some stuff in your own strength. I've got at least a master's degree in trying to do stuff in my own strength. And what I found is that that doesn't tend to work out too well. As I scan my life, in the process of my life, there have been a lot of times where things have gone how I felt like I wanted them to go. Okay. I can be strong-willed enough and I can kind of exert my will in such a way to bring things about that I think I'm wanting to happen. I say that I think I'm wanting to happen because the reality is that's really just my ego at work. It's not really what's going on in my spirit, what I really want to happen. Okay. That's ultimately something that's going to be not very fulfilling if it's something that you're trying to do in your own strength rather than waiting on God. And sometimes that part about waiting on God is you moving your own ego out of the way so that the Spirit of God in you, so that Christ living in you can be who's working in you and working through you to bring about the necessary changes, okay? To help bring that destiny into fulfillment, to help that promise to become actualized, right? And so that's why I say it's all an inside job. It's all inside work, okay, that we're being called to do. You know, I have been on a spiritual path for a long time, but that doesn't mean that I don't get tripped up sometimes. That doesn't mean that I don't get worried or anxious or frustrated or concerned sometimes. That's why I'm able to talk with you about this, because out of my own experiences, I'm able to see that God is saying, listen, calm down, chill out a little bit. I got you. I got you. And they're just like all human beings. There are times where that part of me that's trying to edge God out shows up, and I try to do things in my own strength. I maybe get a little worried or a little concerned or a little impatient or a little frustrated and try to do things to make things happen the way I think that they need to happen. But guess what? That doesn't work out nearly as well as when I allow myself to chill out a little bit and really invest that time with God and ask God for direction. And the reality is that I don't always, in my thinking mind, I don't always want to do it the way that God ends up saying do it. Because sometimes that challenges me to address my own comfort zone or lack thereof. Sometimes it requires me to do things that are outside of my comfort zone. Sometimes it requires me to draw upon something different than what would be my standard go-to. And that's the case for all of us. The thing about it that I've experienced, and I believe that if you do this, you will experience it as well. The more comfortable you get with really going with what it is that God's saying to do. And a lot of times, like I said, that God is always going to be concerned with our growth, with our maturity, with our development, with our experiencing ultimately being and experiencing a sense of fulfillment, right? And so sometimes that thing that God is saying to do is the thing that we're not necessarily wanting to do. Sometimes when we're wanting to try to control something, that's definitely not the thing to do. That's definitely not the thing to do. It's not our job to control necessarily external circumstances. There are things that we are called to do that will make a difference in our lives and in the lives of other people, and that can impact and influence other people and situations. But not always. Not everything is for us to do. It's not always appropriate for us to give somebody a piece of our mind. And in the times where it is appropriate to give somebody a piece of our mind, we need to really get clear in our hearts and in our spirits about how it is that we communicate that. Like last week, for instance, we had just been doing for the last several weeks this series on honor. And we dealt with honoring Jesus. We dealt with honoring your journey. We dealt with honoring your body. We dealt with, on Father's Day, we're honoring the ancestors, and also specifically fathers, or honoring your fathers specifically. And even if not in the earth realm, we all have that divine parentage from God. Okay. And then last week we were dealing with honor your truth. And it's important for us to honor our truth and to be able to honor other people's truth, even if their truth isn't ours, or if our truth isn't theirs, that we honor ourselves enough to honor our truth, as opposed to trying to live somebody else's truth. And we give other people the safe space to do the same. But there are times where we need to speak our truth, right? There are times where we need to actually speak our truth. There are times where we need to be silent, but there are times where we need to speak, and we need to speak our truth. But when we speak our truth, it's appropriate and important for us to be able to speak the truth in love and in wisdom. Okay. I remember hearing Marianne Williamson say a number of times, communication doesn't happen just because you've said something. Okay. What it is that we're communicating isn't just what we say, but what the other person hears. And sometimes we've got to be able to focus on how, or identify, how is it that I am needing to communicate to get this thing across that I have to say, that's an expression of my truth, in a way that this other person can hear it and take away from it exactly what it is that I'm wanting to convey. Okay, because they're going to be hearing through their own filters. So how can I speak what I need to say in a way that they can actually hear it? And also to be able to speak the truth in love. Okay, and that's part of that, speaking so that a person can hear it. Sometimes we don't need to give it to a person in a way that's going to just tear them down and make them feel bad about themselves. Sometimes we don't need to, there's a proverb that said, harsh words stirreth up anger, but a soft answer turns away wrath. Right? Sometimes we need to get clarity on how it is that we can convey something in a way that we're doing so in a spirit of love, and that they can receive that in that spirit of love, and then be able to also hear what it is that we've wanted to convey. Okay. So these are just a few of the things that I believe that we can do while we're in the process of waiting. Really investing time with God to get clear on what it is that is for God to do and what it is that is for us to do, and to ask for the courage and the strength and the discipline to be able to do what it is that we are called to do, as a process of actively waiting or proactively waiting, engaging in those things that are for us to do while we cannot necessarily control certain other aspects. Being able to put our own egos aside and be able to operate from more of a God space in the things that we are doing. Okay. It's best for the God in us to speak. It's best for the God in us to act. It's best for the God in us to do the work, to be the leading mechanism, right? And so if we're going to be doing anything, it's always better that God is the one that's directing our path, directing our course. The God is the one whose directions we're following in the actions that we're taking. But to get clear on that, we've got to invest that time with God, okay? And be really genuine and sincere in our prayer life. Because a lot of times, again, we pray selfish prayers. We want things from a selfish perspective, but when we allow ourselves to mount up on wings as eagles, and we can look down from a much higher perspective, we can see that bigger picture, and then we don't get so caught up in all of the foolishness. There's this concept in quantum physics called the chaos theory, which says, in essence, from up close, everything looks very, very chaotic. Everything looks very chaotic. In fact, even if you were to put a single cell or a few cells under a microscope, you'd see what looks like chaos. There's all this stuff just moving around frantically, right? However, if you take a little bit of a step back, you look at it from a broader perspective, you see actually a greater order at work. All right, you see a greater order at work, and there's actually much more harmony that is unfolding in the midst of it all. And so that's one of the things that I enjoy. I haven't been on a plane since COVID, but that's one of the things I always enjoy about flying, is that I'm able to look down and see things from a much higher perspective than what I was seeing things before. And in the process of that, I'm aware all of those little cars down there, all of those little houses down there, there are people in those houses and there are people in those cars, and each one of them has a story. Each one of them has a story. And there are probably things that each one of them is dealing with or is thinking about or is worried about or concerned about. But from up here, all of that looks so much smaller. It looks so much less significant. And yes, there's traffic going on and all of these things happening. But from that broader perspective, from that higher perspective, nothing seems that significant anymore. Not that the people are insignificant. I'm not saying that at all. But in terms of the bigger picture, the little things that are going on really aren't, at the end of the day, that huge of a deal. Okay? That we have to be completely and totally stressed out all of the time. And that's not to say that we don't all have legitimate things that we need to be focused on or things that we need to be doing. Yes, we all do. We're all in the process of working some stuff out. We're all in the process of growing. And hopefully, we're all in the process of actively doing that. Not growing by default, but purposefully, taking on that which is for us to take on and actively engaging in the work that we are called to do, which again is always an inside job. Even the stuff that we're doing outside in the world, it's still an inside job, that we are coming from the right place within us, doing things from the right motivation, from the right head space, heart space, and soul space. Okay? And so let's just, I see Faith has made comment. J Love, my mama, Ronnie Hall. Okay. Thanks for sharing the love and sharing the light. Faith says, you're welcome. My pleasure. Yeah, but thank you. I appreciate that. They have a beautiful soul. I receive that. And so do you. So let's just take a moment. I just want to pray for everybody out there. God, you who in your marvelous splendor, your infinite wisdom and power, you called galaxies into being. You brought the entirety of the cosmos into existence. And you somehow keep it all balanced and in order. And in a very remote portion of the cosmos, there's this one galaxy called the Milky Way. And in a remote part of this Milky Way comprised of hundreds of billions of stars, there's this one star that we call our sun. And we're one of a few planets that are revolving around it. And there's some 7 billion or so people on it. We each have our own story. We each have our own challenges. We each have our own hopes and dreams. There's not a single one of us that you don't know completely, God. There's not a single one of us that escapes your heart. You love us all. You care about us, each and every one of us. And when we allow for it, you're perfecting all of the things that concern us. There's some things that we'd each like to see unfold in our lives. Some of those things we'd like to see happen fast, quick, and in a hurry. Some of those things require some things to be prepared for them to really unfold. There's some things, God, that you have destined for us that we're actually not ready for whatever reason. There's some things that need to be corrected in us. There's some stuff that we need to be pruned of. There's some things that you have in store for us that where we are right now, we wouldn't really be able to fully embrace it. We wouldn't be able to handle it. We wouldn't be able to appreciate it for what it is. And so, God, as we're in the process of waiting on those things, may whatever in us that needs to be purified be purified. Whatever it is that needs to be taken away, God, may it be taken away from us. Whether that is trauma or negative experiences from the past, or any other particular way that our own egos might show up, that part of us that wants to edge you out. Grow us up, God. Help us to be more fully attuned with your perfect will for our lives. And in those areas where we need to take our hands off the steering wheel and allow you to drive, let us do so. In those areas where our egos are being tempted, or we're being tempted to let our egos run the show, calm us down and chill us out, God. Let us invest time with you that we might become more spiritually mature. Let our ears and our eyes be open to you and to your direction. May we listen to, hear, and hearken unto your voice. Let us do the things that you are calling us to do, because some things we are being called to do. Some things are not ours to do, but some things are ours to do. Help us to see, hear, understand, and act appropriately. Give us the discipline to do what we need to do, the courage to do that, the willingness to do that. And God, grant us the wisdom to be able to recognize the difference between what we're called to do and what we're not called to do. To understand the difference between that which is our work to do and that which is your work to do. And give us the presence of awareness to be able to move in alignment in the appropriate way that serves the ultimate, highest, and best good. You love us, God. You want us to be blessed and want us to experience ourselves as being blessed. There's no good thing that you desire to withhold from us. Help us to be open and receptive to the best that you have for us. And allow us to also be open and receptive to the best that you have to come through us. And now, God, we thank you for all of the blessings that you so graciously, lovingly, and faithfully pour into our lives. So many that we don't always even recognize them as blessings. Forgive us for our foolishness and the ways that we miss the mark along the way, the things that we do that we really don't have any business doing, and the things that we are called to do that we haven't. And yet, God, you're still faithful to us, and we appreciate that. And now, God, as we continue to go about the rest of our day and our week, may we do so feeling a little stronger. May we do so feeling a little more determined and disciplined to be able to move with you, to go where you say go, to do what you say do, to say what you say to say, and to whom. And we'll be careful to give you the honor, because all honor is really due unto you. And anything that we are blessed to do, we indeed are blessed to do. And those blessings come from you. So let us give credit where credit is due. In the name and in the nature of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, we give you great thanks. Amen. Amen. All right, God bless you all. As I said in the prayer, may we all have a bountifully blessed week. May blessings overflow from us so that they spill on everybody we come in contact with, and they're all blessed too. All right. Peace and love to us all, and I'll see you soon.